And I truly believe that that fear came about because of those lies that I was told from the beginning that started to build those neural pathways that maybe I couldn't trust myself. And that ended up really creating a situation where I questioned myself a lot. And that what feels like insanity can happen so easily to us when we believe lies from others. Welcome to the Love Your Brain podcast, the podcast designed for everyday people who are ready to hop off the negative thought hamster wheel and enjoy a less hostile environment in their own brains. Our brains are where we live our entire lives, and I'm on a mission to help people see that they have everything they need to make it a happier place to be. So join us for this episode of the Love Your Brain podcast. Let's get started. Welcome back to the Love Your Brain podcast, or welcome if you're new. This week, we are going to be covering part 2 of a series that I'm calling The Lies I Believed. And in this series, we're talking about lies that often a lot of us end up believing that we're told. And we talk a lot about this in 2 separate categories, so 2 separate types of lies. So I want to go over that first to get us started. Now, in the first category, we're going to call them identity lies. These are lies that someone will tell you about who you are or who you are at your essence, what your core self is. And when it's this type of situation, you're feeling like that doesn't align with you, that maybe what this person is saying doesn't actually feel like who you are. Now, the second category we're going to be talking about is a category that I like to call fortune telling lies. Those are lies that someone is telling you about how they think the future will turn out for you, things that will happen to you, and they don't necessarily align with how your future turns out. Now, these 2 categories tend to overlap because lies that often start with an identity tied to them often end up with a fortune telling tied to it as well. And I'll give you an example of that. In most cases of this, you're going to have someone say, well, because you are such and such a way, your future is going to look like such and such, right? They try to identify who you are and then tell you how they think the future is going to look for you. Now, last week in this series, I did talk about some personal journeys that I had as it related very specifically to my identity and how that turned out for me. And you'll hear a lot in that episode. I also talk about some fortune telling lies that were tied to those identity lies. So if you haven't already, I definitely would encourage you to go back and check out that episode. I think it does give a good starting place for what we're going to be talking about today. But this week, I'm going to go even deeper into this concept of fortune telling lies because I think so many of us don't even realize when they're happening. I mean, some of us hear these even when we're really young and we don't even have the ability to recognize healthy types of conversation, right? But even as adults, sometimes we don't even recognize when someone is telling us a fortune telling lie. And that's because usually these people have good intentions. And that is where I want to start. I want to start by saying that this series could sound very villainizing, right? That people told you lies and they're bad people. But that is actually often not the case. Typically, these fortune telling lies or identity lies are coming from people that care about us a great deal. And that's why they're saying these things. But the thing to remember here is that what they are saying to you is coming from their own place of fear, of insecurity, and they're just simply projecting that onto you. So please remember this, that as we're going through this series, it's okay to feel angry and frustrated when you look back and you recognize that someone may have told you something that was actually a lie that you believed. But it doesn't necessarily mean you have to get mad at that person. I think it's important to recognize that we're all wounded in some way and we all have our own narrative going through our brain that's been there a long time. And sometimes we don't even realize the things that we're doing to others. And so when you're going through this, give those people that were telling you lies, give them a little bit of grace, but also give yourself space to feel the feelings. If you feel frustrated, if you feel angry, take time and space to allow yourself to process through those emotions. But again, just remember as you're going through these series that this is not meant to make you angry at the people that care about you, right? This is simply giving you the information so that you can start to do the work on your own brain to create new neural pathways for what you do want to believe. So, with that, let's go ahead and get started with this episode. I want to begin with a fortune telling lie that feels a little bit generational for me, and I'll share a little bit about why that is. So, growing up, my mom always told me that she had wanted to be a social worker or other helping professional when she grew up. But she always told me that the people around her told her she wouldn't be able to handle it, that it would be too emotionally taxing for her, and so it just wouldn't be a good fit for her. So instead, she became an accountant and went down a completely different career path than what she felt passionate about. And I think she genuinely felt regret about that. She ended up going into accounting because of what other people said instead of going down a path that felt right for her. So, funny enough, when I told my mom that I wanted to go into social work, I was probably in high school at the time. She was actually very encouraging because she didn't want me to fall for the same lies that she had believed growing up that kept her from going after something that she was really passionate about exploring. But just about everyone, other than my mom, just about everyone in my circle that heard I wanted to go into social work tried to talk me out of it. They would tell me, "Oh my gosh, you're going to get so burned out. You aren't going to be able to handle that. It's so hard on social workers. They don't last." And eventually, they get to a place where they don't even like people. They don't like helping people, and that's going to happen to you. I remember one specific interaction where I was actually at my social work internship, and I had a client come in that no one in the office liked. They thought this person was very manipulative and annoying, and no one liked working with them. And I greeted them with excitement and optimism, like I always did with our clients. And someone that was working in the office, they had been there a lot longer than I had, they came up to me and they said, "That will fade. One day you won't feel that way about these kind of people, and just wait. You're going to feel differently about this person after you work with them for a while." And that stuck with me. It was really interesting, but to this day, I can really clearly identify that conversation. And it stuck with me, and I thought, well, maybe the things that other people have told me and what this person is saying, maybe that's true. And maybe I will lose love for people someday. Maybe that will happen to me. And what that did for me is it instilled fear in me. But more on that to come. Here I am 20 years into working in social work, and I can assure you that has not happened to me. I did not stop loving people. In fact, the longer I've been in this field, the more respect and empathy I've gained for the people that I work with. I learned that I really knew a lot less than I thought over these years, and that truly the value of helping people is simply to sit with them in their challenges and be alongside them as they navigate really, really difficult things. It's not showing, it's not teaching, it's not guiding, it's not telling, which are a lot of things I thought social work would be. Instead, it's been a lot of standing alongside someone else as they fight their own fight and help them to find their own solutions. The really sad part about this journey and about this lie that I believed is that I can only now see in hindsight that I let that initial fear that I would one day not love people like I did when I first started in this field. I let that fear take root. And as time went on, I would almost brace myself for the feeling of no longer loving people, or even worse, having fear that the hatred of people could be around any corner, that one day I would just wake up and I would hate all the people that I work with. I was always like just waiting to see if it would happen to me. Is it happening now? Oh no. What's going to happen next? And that fear did not serve me. And what's interesting is believing these lies, it's basically our brain taking that information in, processing it through our already established neural pathways, and spitting out a result that doesn't necessarily always look like what got put in. Like the person who told me this lie wanted me to be afraid of going into this field. But I can see now is that instead of discouraging me, actually just instilled a really unique type of fear. And part of that was that I didn't know my calling well enough. Maybe I didn't know myself well enough. Maybe I didn't know enough about the world. And what that questioning did was it really made me lose trust with myself that I had chosen the wrong career. It didn't make me really afraid of being a social worker. It made me afraid that I couldn't trust myself. And I firmly believe that that fear definitely drew in some situations that had so much fear tied to them and didn't necessarily need to. But when we're focusing our energy on those types of emotions that are tied to things like fear, we end up attracting more of that fear. And this was completely misplaced fear in some situations. And I'm going to tell you a story that might make you laugh a little, I'm not sure, but it is one that made me reflect back on where I had ended up in my career. Now, I had been in the field, I don't know, less than 10 years at the time, but I remember I was doing a home visit, and this was kind of a pop in home visit. It wasn't an anticipated one, but I was sitting in the car in front of the house that I was supposed to be going to. And just like looking around, something felt off in my gut. But I was like, you know what? I need to do this. I'm just going to go up to the door. So I go up to the door, I knock on the door. No one comes, but I can tell someone is inside of the house. And something is feeling very off at this point. So I'm not going to pursue it anymore. I decide I'm just going to turn around and I'm going to walk back to my work vehicle. And as I'm walking back to my work vehicle, all of a sudden gunfire starts going off. So I took cover in the car. I'm sitting in the driver's seat, parked in front of this house. And before I know it, I am surrounded by the SWAT team on either end of the street that I'm on. And a police officer is making a beeline for me. And he gets to my window and he's yelling at me and he's saying, "Get in the passenger seat. Get in the passenger seat. I need to get you out of here." But I was frozen. I was frozen in that driver's seat. And I mean, probably most of you are having your own thoughts as to what you might do in that situation. But my biggest fear in that moment was that my employer would find out that I let a police officer drive a work vehicle and I would lose my job. Because when I had started there, whenever you're in this kind of situation where you have a work vehicle, usually you have to sign a bunch of paperwork that you're not going to let someone operate the car that isn't authorized to operate the car. And that is what is going through my mind in this moment. Mind you, there is still gunfire going on. But all I can think of is I'm going to lose my job if I let this police officer drive this car. And so I'm trying to explain this to him through the window. And he is screaming at me, get over, we don't have time. And eventually I'm like, okay, I really think this is something I need to do, but I was terrified. So I did get over, I got into the passenger seat, and he drove me down to another road while they attempted to get that situation under control. And you know what the first thing I did was? I called my boss and I confessed. And I told her, I said, I let a police officer drive a car. I had no option. There was gunfire happening and blah, 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 blah. And I'm just talking a million miles a minute. And she was like, okay, but are you safe? And of course, I mean, you're probably thinking the same thing right now. Like, that should have been my main concern was me being safe, but I was more scared that I was making a bad decision and I wasn't able to trust myself to make the right decision to move into the passenger seat because it just seemed like, well, I signed these documents, maybe I'm making the wrong choice and I'm going to end up losing my job. Now, looking back, of course, this is absurd. But that is what our brains do when they've been trained to operate in that way. And that's what had happened to me over the years. So much completely misplaced fear in that situation. And I truly believe that that fear in that specific situation came about because of those lies that I was told way on from the beginning that started to build those neural pathways that maybe I couldn't trust myself to even choose the right career for me. And that ended up really creating a situation where I questioned myself a lot, even in situations where my safety was definitely at risk. And that what feels like insanity can happen so easily to us when we believe lies from others. They can really just end up going through our brain and almost spitting out a result that maybe not even be what that person intended when they said that to us. I think back, what if instead, when I said I wanted to go into social work, what if someone had told me that I would grow to love people more, that my heart would break for them even more the longer I'm in the career, and that I would come to realize what a gift every person is. How would that have colored my experience in social work differently? Or what if someone said, "Oh my gosh, you are going to be an amazing social worker. This is the perfect choice for you, and you're going to do great things, and it's going to be a wonderful, wonderful career for you." What if someone had said that to me instead? Each of us makes so many assumptions about what an experience will be like for someone else. And personally, I just love challenging myself when I have those assumptions to be like, well, what is a wild way this could actually end up? Because you know what? Most of the time in life, it's those wild ways that actually end up being a reality. Life never looks like how we will anticipate it will. And it's such a game changer for changing your perspective on things. But young me didn't really have that skill set yet. And instead, I stepped through many stages of my career with fear, waiting for the other shoe to drop, peeking around the corner, like, am I going to think now that I made a mistake? Around every corner that I turned. How sad is that? I spent energy on something that never came to pass. I still feel like I made the right decision in choosing this career. And completely opposite things happened for me in the career than what people had told me. Like I said, working with people has only grown my love for people, for humanity, even more. And so many of us do this with careers, especially. We let way too many people give their input into how that career is going to work out for us, even if it has no tie to our own truth. I'm a firm believer that if you are called to a career that you feel that tug, I would say just go for it. Follow your instinct. Give it a try. What's the worst that could happen? You end up having to pivot and change careers? That's not the end of the world at all. There is something that each person will bring to a career that will add something that no one else could, because every person is so unique and no one else can know exactly what that is that you could bring to that career except for that internal pull. That's what's calling you there. And the other side of that coin is sometimes we need to go into certain careers because we need to grow and develop in new and different ways that can maybe only happen in that career. So I say if you're feeling a pull, I say go for it. But that is the story of how a fortune telling lie that I would become a burned out social worker who didn't even like people anymore actually didn't happen for me. But what did happen still negatively impacted my career and my trust with myself. But yes, today I still love, love, love working with the people that I work with, probably more so than even when I started. And what I hope you can take from today's episode is just that no one else can know what your journey is going to look like. So take those fortune telling lies with a grain of salt. Sometimes they can create a new neural pathway that's going to result in something that we don't even realize. So be very careful with really putting a lot of emphasis on anyone else's perspective but your own. Even if it's someone that cares about you a lot, really take time to mull those things over and see if it aligns with you and kind of unpack what it might be telling you about who you are and what your future might look like. I hope these episodes have helped you to maybe identify some lies that you've believed and given you some tools to hopefully start unpacking them and conquering them. Have a great week, guys. I hope you found something helpful here today on the Love Your Brain podcast. Maybe a laugh or a feeling of validation, or maybe just a few moments to have company while you do your laundry. Whatever you take from it, I hope you enjoyed your time and leave feeling empowered to be more you every day. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on the next episode, and leave a review. I'd love to hear what you think. Have a great one.